And now I want to talk about this organ over here. This is the pancreas, an organ most commonly known for its capabilities to produce insulin. Now, insulin is a hormone that helps get glucose from the bloodstream into important organs such as muscles. Glucose is like fuel for the human body. Without it, a human body cannot function for a very long time. If for some reason it would stop producing insulin, it helps take the glucose from the bloodstream into the cells of different organs, or if these cells and the human body becomes immune to the insulin, then the patient most likely suffers from diabetes mellitus type 1 or 2. This is a condition that's very hard to deal with. In some countries, people sometimes have to calculate and ration the insulin they have available, and sadly, that is sometimes truly the case even in the United States. But even if we are talking about patients who are well off, there are many other issues, not just financial ones. So for example, frustration over food choices, worrying about complications, feeling guilty because of some underlying conditions that could have been prevented, or habits and life choices made in the past. All of these thoughts come very often to people who suffer from diabetes, and it is true. Successfully managing these risk factors indeed can help avoid diabetes altogether. Having a healthy diet, losing weight, regular exercise. If you quit smoking, then that's great, because smokers are 30 to 40 times more likely to develop diabetes mellitus. But instead of losing sleep over these thoughts, we need to focus on what's in the future and what can be done so that we have a better tomorrow. Now, we don't want to wake up in a new world tomorrow that is pretty much the same like the old world from yesterday, doing all these bad things and having these bad habits. Why not? A healthy diet, exercise daily. Even if you're in a wheelchair, you can exercise. These risk factors are still there, but they're risk factors now not for developing diabetes mellitus, but for progression of diabetes mellitus, or potentially also developing hypertension or kidney disease. These risk factors should be managed, but that's not what I want to talk about today, because most people who suffer from diabetes mellitus, they know these risk factors and they are working to manage them in a proper way. But I want to talk about one specific danger that catches many people off guard and is very lethal. But before I explain this danger and what can be done about it, there is something that you can do about it right away, right now. Many people are suffering from diabetes mellitus, and we can raise awareness by sharing this video, liking it, and subscribing. Primarily, sharing the video and liking will somehow make YouTube algorithms and algorithms from other websites suggest our videos to people suffering from diabetes mellitus. Otherwise, there won't be any audience and they will not see our videos. So that's something that can be done right now. But now back to this dangerous condition I want to warn specifically newly diagnosed diabetic patients about. Hyperglycemic crisis. That's the condition I want to talk about. There are two types of hyperglycemic states that I want to explain, but I just can't keep this professional posture in this video anymore. This is crazy. That new research suggests that hyperglycemic crisis cases happen more commonly in poorer areas of the country. And the reason for that might be this rationing of insulin, or skipping a dose of insulin altogether. And why is that happening? A vial of insulin costs about $5, $10, $20 to produce, and some companies are charging as much as $500 for that. We know the prices in Canada, we know the prices in Europe, we know the prices in India. And yet, insulin prices in America are killing people. Both forms of hyperglycemic crisis are dangerous. Diabetic ketoacidosis is the less severe one, and hyperosmolar hyperglycemic state is the more lethal one. Well, normally our body can produce ketone bodies, and if all the glucose is in these big arteries of our body and it cannot be taken in by the muscles and other organs, like the biceps muscle, what can happen is that our body can break down fat and then use that to produce ketone bodies, and ketone bodies are then used by other organs to produce energy. They are not using glucose now, but ketone bodies. And that is exactly done if there is no insulin, and the glucose cannot enter organs of the human body. Our muscles can use ketone bodies to produce energy, and while that is great and that can help them work, it ultimately turns your blood acidic. That results in a condition called ketoacidosis. So patients suffering from ketoacidosis would have glucose concentration in his blood elevated, but the pH value would be reduced. This means that his blood is becoming more acidic, and that is dangerous. Up to 2% of patients suffering an episode of ketoacidosis ultimately die from the consequences it causes. Now, 2% is a lot. However, with proper treatment, patients don't die from this condition. But what if you do have a little bit of insulin left, and not enough to absorb all the glucose into the organs, but enough to stop the production of ketone bodies that make blood more acidic? Well, this means there won't be a large excess of ketone bodies. So since ketone bodies make your blood more acidic, and if you don't have them, well, that's a good thing, right? Well, sadly, some reports suggest that people who actually experience this and who do develop this hyperosmolar hyperglycemic state have up to 20% chances of a lethal outcome, of a deadly outcome. Specifically, hyperosmolar hyperglycemic state is one with a much higher mortality than ketoacidosis. And what's also sad about it is that it usually affects people with type 2 diabetes, and there are way more people with type 2 diabetes than with type 1. But another trick here is that people who do suffer from type 1 diabetes usually think that they cannot have this HHS, hyperglycemic crisis, and they only think that ketoacidosis can affect them, and that is actually not true. Yes, mostly the HHS usually affects type 2 diabetes patients, but it can affect type 1 as well. This is a particularly dangerous condition, and patients are basically stuck with this little bit of insulin in the bloodstream, and that insulin prevents the liver from producing ketone bodies, the ketone bodies that normally would have been sent to peripheral organs to be used for energy production. That cannot happen because the insulin is there and it prevents this process. So because ketone bodies are not produced, the pH value of the patient's blood will not drop the way it drops in ketoacidosis. In fact, patient will not develop acidosis symptoms, and therefore patient also might not notice that something is wrong, and people around this patient also might be caught off guard. At the same time, glucose, which is in the bloodstream and cannot be taken in by the cell of this body because the insulin is not working, will spike above 600 milligrams per deciliter. And at the same time, the body will try to get rid of that glucose through urine. But as this glucose leaves, it will draw the water from the body along with itself. This loss of water can lead to an extreme case of dehydration. Patient's kidneys might fail, and a patient might even fall into a coma. And up to 20% of patients admitted to ICUs with HHS eventually die from this condition. I know how hard it might be, and I know it might even sound stupid, especially if one is not in a financially good position, but try to do everything you can. Just do not ration your insulin. Like, everything you can. Your family loves you. Ask them to help out. Do not be ashamed. Even if you have money and you do not ration your insulin or do something like that or just survive, ask people around you to participate, remind you, and help you remain compliant to your therapy. I have no ways to influence the pharma industry, and I believe that I understand to a certain degree what's going on with the prices and why they are so high. But do not ration, do not skip, and if you're lucky and you can afford it, do not forget your dose of insulin. And this is what we can do. We can raise the awareness. We can let people know about these dangers. And we can all benefit from videos like these. If you're a doctor and you want to make videos like these, then go to Symptomsky.com. But if you have more questions about diabetes, then go to Symptomsky.com/help/DM. We try to help as much as we can.